Hey there, Legal Tea listeners. This is your host, Jenny Roselle. Welcome back for another episode of Legal Tea. Today's topic is a current trend, something going on in the current time that I've stumbled across on the news or social media that is pertinent to my little estate and elder law world. This week's episode is based from an article that I found on moneytalknews.com that's about items that are commonly inherited, which are worth almost nothing. But oftentimes people think they are worth something. So we're going to go through some of those things on the list, and what I'll do is I'll chime in on some sort of real life stories of clients and my own dealings and really just on specifically these type of personal property items that the article goes into. So it should be a fun one. Before we get started though, let's lay some groundwork here. This whole topic really comes to fruition usually when someone passes away, right? And it's time to clean out the house, condo, apartment, whatever. Sometimes in someone's estate plan, they will designate who they want to get specific items. The fancy word is called specific bequest. So in an estate plan, you can say, I want my diamond ring and wedding band to go to my granddaughter Susie, or I want my classic car to go to my son Johnny. These specific bequests get honored kind of off the top, meaning that they take place first before final distributions of assets and money are made. These specific bequest items can be anything. So sometimes I see jewelry, antiques, sentimental items, coins, crystal, chinaware, etc., etc. The list could go on and on. Interestingly, where I sit in this conversation is I am often the one that the client is telling to put in the document, the ring to Susie, the car to Johnny. So I'm the one incorporating these things into their estate plan. But say they don't have any specific bequests or specific wishes on items. All of that personal property is still the estate's asset and property, and therefore subject to the person's will or trust. So let's fast forward some time and say this person has passed away now. As part of the executor or trustee's duties and responsibilities, they've got to deal with your stuff inside your house, condo, apartment, whatever, and maybe outside too, like vehicles. Needless to say, that stuff inside or outside of your house is definitely related to my little estate and elder law world. After all, whether it has monetary value, sentimental value, no value, it's all part of your estate. Even if it's worth 5 cents, it's still part of your estate, my friends. So now on this topic, I find many clients that think some of these items are worth like mega bucks. And well, maybe I shouldn't use the word mega. Mega means different things to different people. What I mean by this is oftentimes people think that these personal property items are worth a little bit of a chunk of a change. And studies show more and more generations do not give a hoot about this stuff, leaving it to result in fairly low value or completely valueless. So let's use something on the list from the article as an example. One type of item on the list is chinaware. So I'm talking about those, china dishes, the stuff in your grandparents' or parents' house and that fancy looking hutch that you may, but probably not, have used for some holiday gathering. It's that stuff I'm talking about. So I hate to break it to you, but there's just not the demand for it anymore. It's like basic economics, right? If there's little demand, prices become less competitive. And I've seen this time and time again in estates. Like someone has passed away, no one wants the chinaware, so they either sell it online and good luck with that, or they sell it in a garage sale, or they sell it at an auction, and they make next to nothing off of it. I've seen that stuff be sent to auction, and it kind of depends on who shows up at the auction that day to buy stuff. But I've seen chinaware go for a few bucks, and that's it. Not kidding. So let's shift to something else on the list from the article, like crystal, Waterford crystal, for example. And I actually have a personal story. Well, it's, I guess, personal and professional on this one. So again, same concept as chinaware. While it used to be big and popular and expensive back in the day, kids these days, for the most part, don't care about it. So what did I say about the chinaware, right? If there's little demand, you practically give it away. So my story on this, on crystal, is I served as the executor of an estate where the person had very little family. Some distant cousins existed, but she wasn't even remotely close to them. So she put me, as my professional self, an attorney, in that executor role to do all things estate related after she passed. So fast forward some time, she passes away, I take over, and one day I'm over at her house and I'm cleaning it out. And I remember I had finally made it to the downstairs. I tackled the upstairs first, then went downstairs, and I was kind of chipping away at cleaning out the front entryway closet. So I noticed a large box in the back of the closet, and I pull it out, and to my surprise, it's filled to the brim with beautiful Waterford crystal. I had hired someone to help me clean out the house. It was honestly becoming like a full-time job, and on top of my already full-time attorney job. So I recruited that, just a second set of hands. And when I found this box, I went and grabbed her, showed her what I found, and I was like, I know this stuff was expensive when it was purchased, but in my experience, it has such, a minimal value anymore. So we weren't going to do a garage sale, and like I said, the person that passed had essentially no family left, or actually all of her beneficiaries in her will were charitable organizations. So we elected to take it to a local auction company to sell it for us. And I remember a large, beautiful crystal globe in the box, and I thought, man, I wonder how much that baby cost. Well, at the bottom of the box, I happened to find the receipts. That thing cost $700, that globe. That thing cost $700. And would you even believe me if I told you that it sold at the auction for $15? Well, believe me, that happened. And everything else sold for pennies on the dollar as well. Alrighty, let's shift to something else on the list from the article. Furniture. Whether it's large, antique, a hunk of junk, whatever, furniture is the next topic we're talking about. And this one is a touch tricky because, if I had to stay very general and what I've experienced professionally, I guess, and personally too, most people do not want their grandparents' or parents' furniture because they already have their own. Now, there's a select few people out there that, either just really need furniture, like maybe they're moving or something, or maybe they're just the kind of person that likes old stuff, like antique furniture, but most people don't. They don't want it. They don't need it. And honestly, you hitting them up for it, they feel guilt for saying no, because after all, it's grandma's or it's your father's childhood bed or whatever. This stuff is a classic case, a classic example of something that I would say has high sentimental value, but maybe really low monetary value, right? From there, the person that may receive the furniture item really just has to decide if it's enough sentimental value for them to go through the hassle of bringing it into their own house, and ultimately pawning it off on their own children or loved ones down the road. And I can speak to this too, because my own parents, which I totally know, I don't think they even listen to my podcast, so they won't get too mad at me. My own parents were recently remodeling a room, and in that room, they had my grandmother's rocking chair. Well, that rocking chair, I can see my grandmother rocking in it. So, it had that sentimental value, yes. So they hit my sister and I up, hey, do you guys, either one of you guys want grandma's rocking chair? And I'm going to guess I was in a meeting or something. So I didn't immediately respond. And my sister beat me to the punch and said, no, I don't have room for it. So I see this whole conversation unfold, and I have this immense guilt come over. I want to say no, but I think my mom's little heart would be so sad if it didn't stay in the family. So what did I do? I begrudgingly took it, shoved it into a corner in my house, and I guess when I pass away, someone can pitch it, I suppose. So my final thing I'm going to talk about from this article's list is something that as soon as I saw it on the list, I was like, oh yes, I'm totally going to end on this one. And it'll be hilarious to talk about on here because I have a client that I totally hope that the client that did this in her estate plan hears this episode, because she'll think it's so cool that she made a subtle appearance on my podcast. But anyway, so this item, let me get through the item first. So this item, drum roll, is Christmas decorations. Christmas decorations made this funny list. So I think it's hilarious how specific it is about what holiday. It's really funny because of the story I'll share in a second. But the article primarily talks about modern Christmas decorations. So think artificial Christmas trees, decorations straight up from, say, Hobby Lobby or whatever. And actually, the article does talk about how there is sort of a market for older antique Christmas decorations. But to be honest, I'd say that's probably going to be a dying thing too. No pun intended. I could be wrong, but from my experience, both professionally and personally, I just witness a lot of clients, their kids and grandkids and my own loved ones just not care about that kind of antique-y stuff. So, okay, if there's a market, if it stays, great. No, I'm not going to hold my breath that it will stay. So my funny story that I keep hinting at. So I have a lovely client that is honestly turned into a friend. And she has joked with her daughter that at her passing, the daughter has to take her Christmas decorations. It's turned into this whole joke between the family at this point, because the daughter has told the mom over and over that she does not want the Christmas decorations. So when I did her estate plan, she was telling me this hilarious story about her daughter and the Christmas decorations. And she asked, can we put something funny in my trust, a real specific thing, where the Christmas decorations go to my daughter? And I was like, heck yes, absolutely we can. So I'm going to read you exactly, I pulled the language from the document and plopped it. So I'm going to read exactly how it's written in this woman's estate plan because it's hilarious. Okay, it says, as soon as practicable after the death of client name, the trustees shall distribute all of the client's Christmas decorations to her daughter, and then names the client's daughter's name. And then it says, Teehee, your mom loves you. And they say estate planning is going to be awful boring and a pain. Psh, that's just because you're not working with my firm, is what I say to that. So as we start to kind of wind this episode up, with this article and all the all of this episode and the stories I've shared, am I saying it's all valueless? Absolutely not. No. But more often than not, the person who owns the item thinks the item is worth more than what it actually is. Whether the value is sentimental value, like my grandma's rocking chair that I did not want, or monetary value, like perhaps chinaware and crystal, which is quite valueless anymore. Unfortunately, whether we like it or not, that's just kind of the current trend among people that are currently inheriting. Most just don't place the same value on these items that their loved one did. And you know what? Could things go back up in monetary value? Sure. Could more people love and appreciate things of high sentimental value? Sure. Alrighty, let's wrap this episode up. Next week's topic is on estate planning of the rich and famous. And on that episode, we're going to be diving into what happened estate-wise following the unexpected passing of Sonny Bono. While he was only 62 at the time of his passing, he actually passed away from a skiing accident. And for my young Legal Tea listeners out there, if you don't know who Sonny is, just look him up, okay? So tune in next Tuesday, Legal Tea listeners, to join as I dive into Sonny's estate. Talk to you then, and stay well.